I just received an unusual delivery, this big old whiskey barrel here. You see, my friend's throwing a summer party in a few weeks and he asked me if I could make a bar for their garden. We talked about ideas for a bit and then we settled on a whiskey barrel bar. So I ordered the barrel and now I have 2 weeks to work out how to turn it into a bar. I managed to get the barrel into the garden and then I went and did some research online. So it looks like the first step is to nail the wooden staves into these metal bands that are around it. Because at the moment, these iron bands are actually just keeping the whole thing together under tension. They're not actually glued or nailed together at all. So if we cut it in half now, it would all just fall apart and it'd be a nightmare to get it back together to where it was. I went over the barrel with a wire brush to remove any of the loose dirt and rust without going too crazy. But before we start, I want to do something about these nails because at the moment they're very shiny and they're going to stick out like a sore thumb against the rusty iron bands that we've got. Because I'm not planning on polishing up the iron bands, I'm going to keep them as they are pretty much. So instead, we're going to remove the zinc galvanization off of the nails using some hydrochloric acid. The zinc is there to stop the iron nails from rusting by being sacrificially oxidized instead of the iron, but I want the nails to rust, at least the heads of them that are going to be exposed. And luckily, zinc is much more reactive to acids than iron is, so we can leave these in for a few minutes and very quickly they'll have eaten away all of the zinc. Normally, removing the galvanization from nails isn't a good idea because it will significantly shorten their lifetimes if they're going to be out exposed to the elements. But this bar is going to be inside a shed, so it's not going to be exposed to any rain or anything, so it should hold up just fine. So I washed off the acid and then I let them sit half submerged in a brine solution for a couple days to kickstart the surface rusting, and now they're ready to use. So I marked the metal bands every 15 centimeters and I drilled pilot holes for the nails to prevent the staves from splitting. Then I hammered the nails in and flattened the heads with a ball peen hammer. And before we cut the metal bands, I secured the barrel with some ratchet lashings to hold the tension so it doesn't just pop open dangerously. So next we need to find a center line of the lid that matches up with the edges of two opposing staves. So instead of having to cut through any of the staves, we can just split it where two of them meet. So I marked the line all the way down and then I used an angle grinder to cut the metal bands. And then I removed the lashings to let the barrel fall in half. So with the barrel open, now it's time to let the whiskey fumes evaporate a bit. I filed down the sharp edges on the metal bands and brushed out the loose char from the inside of the barrel using a wire brush. And then we cut the top and bottom lids in half and I removed the char from them as well. And then I drilled holes in the top and bottom metal bands of each side so we could screw in the top and bottom pieces of lid. I also cut a semicircular shelf for the middle of each barrel and screwed those in. So now for the bar top itself, I've got this solid oak worktop. So I marked it up and then we cut it to size with a circular saw, and we used a table saw to cut the offcuts into uniform pieces that we can glue to the underside and create these sort of overhangs that give it the illusion of being a much thicker piece of wood than it actually is. This adds an illusion of depth without too much extra weight, and once it was dry I sanded it. And then I painted on a layer of food grade mineral oil to really make the colour pop and to make it somewhat waterproof because it's going to be a bar top, so stuff's going to get spilt on it inevitably. But I didn't go all the way and add a lacquer finish or anything because my friend wanted the natural wood sort of effect. I let the oil soak in for a few days and then sanded down the grain where it had risen a bit from soaking in the oil. And using a couple of extra barrel staves that I got, I crafted some candle holders by cutting them to size, drilling some big holes in them, and staining the edges darker. With the offcuts from those two staves, I made some thick coasters. Then I made some candles using these little shot glasses by melting some paraffin wax on the stove, soaking a string in the paraffin wax to create a wick, and then just pouring the paraffin wax into the shot glasses. And I installed these lights under the barrel lid and under the shelf. And I added a black metal wine glass holder to each half as well. I also added an LED strip light to the underside of the bar top. And then I screwed the barrels into the bar top from underneath so the screws wouldn't show through. And hopefully you'll agree, the whole thing ended up looking pretty decent. It looked especially good in the evening when it was dark and you could light the candles and see the under table lighting. So now it's time to transport it to my friend's house. So I broke it down into the 3 parts, but each of the barrel halves still weighs 25 kilos each, and the bar top weighs about 30. So it was a bit of a struggle getting it all in my friend's car, and we had to do it in a couple of trips, but we got it all there and we set it up in their shed. They added some bar mats and all their drinks to it, and let's fast forward to what it looked like at the end of the party. So as you can see, it's seen a lot of use, but it seems to have held up pretty well. There's a lot of spilt drinks on it, but doesn't look like any of them are stained thanks to the oil coating we gave it. It survived being knocked into by some drunk people because the sheer weight of it and it being screwed in allows it to hold itself together very well. So yeah, we did it. This was a slightly different video from the normal sort of stuff I do, a bit less science and engineering, a bit more DIY, but you know, fits the steampunk theme. Hope it was interesting. Thanks. Bye.